would do to have the kind of faith it takes to climb out of this boat and then under the crashing waves.
Hey everybody, it's PJ McClure, the Mindset Maven, and I wanted to come to you for an edition of Spiritual Seeds. I wanted to plant a spiritual seed with you today, and I wanted to bring it from the book of Matthew. And I wanted to read a passage that there are certain ways that I've heard a lot of people focus on this passage, but I want to bring it to you maybe in a slightly different way, some way that I've been thinking about it differently. And it's in Matthew, and it is chapter 14. There we go. Chapter 14, and it starts with verse 22. Now, the passage I'm going to read to you is about Jesus walking on the water. And he's coming just off of preaching a big, huge message, and he's just fed the 5,000, and he's gone off to pray, and he sent the guys out on, his disciples out into the boat to head to the other side. And now night is coming, and Jesus is getting ready to come out to them, and the big scene of walking on the water happens. So as it reads, immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone, but the boat by this time was a long way from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. And in the fourth watch of the night he came to them, walking on the sea. But the disciples saw him walking on the sea. They were terrified and said, "It's a ghost!" And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Don't be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "You are truly the Son of God." Now, I've heard a lot of different sermons and lessons and everything else preached on this, and I was actually doing part of a merit with Royal Rangers. It's a boys' organization that my son participates in, and I'm a teacher in it. And I was talking on this very verse, and in the middle of talking with the boys, it kind of occurred to me that this whole verse, usually the way it's taught, is about trust and in trusting Jesus, and in people kind of get on to Peter because he took his eyes off Jesus and he was afraid of the wind and he started to sink. And there are a lot of lessons around that involving trust, but there was one that jumped out at me that was considerably different, and it's probably just because of who I am and what I'm thinking about all the time, but I wanted to share it with you to see if it hit with you also, because the part that really jumped out to me is not that Peter lost his faith, or he didn't trust. It's not that Jesus was even walking on water. I mean, he's God. Come on. That's pretty awesome. But the part that I wanted to really bring out, starting in verse 28, and Peter answered him, "Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water. Okay, that's very cool, but here's the key. Peter got out of the boat. He got out of the boat. Okay, they're on the sea. The wind is against them. They are far away from shore. It is undoubtedly way over his head. And he said, "Jesus, if it's you, tell me to come." And Jesus said, "Bring it. Come. Come to me." And Peter got out of the boat. Now, why is that a big deal? Whenever we're talking about all of the things that especially we as Christians do, we spend a lot of our time asking for stuff. And that's okay. I mean, it tells us right in the Bible, ask. Okay, it tells us over and over we're supposed to ask. We're supposed to verbalize what it is that we want, our desires, our gratitudes, our pains. But we're supposed to ask. Okay, and Jesus says in multiple places, if you ask and you believe, even with faith the size of a mustard seed and many other things, you can do anything. Anything can be done. But you got to ask. So that's all okay. And Peter asked, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you on the water." Well, okay. He asked. That's what he did. But here's the thing that I want to point out. Many times, whenever we ask, Jesus says, okay, come on. Okay, here it is. I can't think of the number of times. I can't count the number of times anywhere where I've said, prayed for something like, God, open this thing up to me so I can go do this. Give me the opportunity to go speak to people. Give me the opportunity to work with people one-on-one and teach them how to have amazing lives. Let me have this. Let me have that. Oh, if you would just open this up for me, Lord. And I also can't count the number of times whenever I have basically heard, come, okay, do it. Those parts aren't the cool part. Asking, that's pretty common. Honestly, God saying, okay, is pretty common more often than not. The part that's uncommon, the part that I want to capitalize on, the part that I want to commend Peter for, is he got out of the boat. He got out of the boat and things happened. When his eyes were on Jesus, he walked on the water with him. Okay, yes, Jesus walked on the water, and we all hear the stories of it, but so did Peter. By keeping his eyes on Jesus, but by more than anything else, obeying the command. He asked, Jesus said yes, and he got out of the boat. So I want to challenge you. I want to plant this spiritual seed. If you're willing to ask, if there's something you really want, if you're staying kingdom-minded, and you're seeking the kingdom of God first, and you know that you're being told, okay, go for it. It wouldn't have been that cool of a story if he would have said, hey, tell me to come. And Jesus said, come. And he said, wow, you know what? Jesus just told me I could come out there and I could walk on water. Isn't that neat, guys? Isn't that pretty cool? But that didn't matter. He got out of the boat. That's where the story starts in my eyes. Are you willing to get out of the boat and actually accept what it is that you've asked for? I hope this blesses you. I hope we planted a spiritual seed that will grow into something massive in your life. Be your best.
But the voice of truth tells me a different story. The voice of truth says do not be